You don't need more goals. You don't need another vision. You don't even need more motivation. What you need to do is kill the version of you that can't survive the success you say you want. Because if your identity doesn't match your ambition, your nervous system will sabotage everything you build, and it will call it just being tired, burnout, or not ready yet. See, your brain has one priority, which is consistency, and it would rather protect an old, outdated version of you than embrace a new one it doesn't recognize. So you start making progress, and right when the momentum picks up, you pull back. Not because you're scared of failure, but because success feels like a betrayal of who you've been. In this video, I'm going to show you the hidden identity trap that's quietly running your life, and how to finally replace it with a system that lets the new you stick without burning out, without willpower, and without pretending. But before we even get into that, have you ever wondered why every breakthrough feels followed by a breakdown? Let's start there. All right, hello and welcome to this training. As you can see from the title, what we're going to be covering today is you don't need more goals, you need a new identity. And as you can see from the overview, what we're going to be talking about more specifically is first the overview itself, the identity trap, the pattern that repeats itself, the brain that won't let you change, the system that makes you someone else, the environment that finishes the job, the review, and your action items for the day or the next few days. So with that being said, let's just get started with the identity trap. So the real reason most people never change has nothing to do with their goals. It's not about lack of time, knowledge, tactics, or motivation. It's because they're trying to build a new life while dragging around the outdated identity of someone who doesn't belong there. It's like trying to fly with bricks in your backpack. The moment things start working, some hidden part of you pulls the brakes, not because you hate progress, but because it doesn't match who you still believe you are. The strongest psychological force in the human system isn't desire, it's consistency. You will subconsciously act, react, sabotage, delay, and distort anything that violates the image you've anchored as you. So even when you say you want success, if your internal model still sees you as the underdog, the struggler, the amateur, the fixer-upper, you'll create just enough chaos to keep that story intact. This is why new habits rarely stick, not because they're hard, but because they're incompatible with the current identity. You start waking up early to train, but you still see yourself as someone who hates mornings. So the habit feels foreign. It feels forced, it feels fake, and eventually your nervous system drags you back into alignment with your default self-image. You launch something new, get early traction, and then stop showing up, not because you're afraid of failure, but because success would violate the role you've unconsciously committed to playing. That's identity resistance, and if you don't resolve it, you'll keep creating upper limits, false starts, and burnout cycles that feel like life, but are actually just identity maintenance mechanisms in disguise. Every time you try to change your output without upgrading your identity, you trigger internal conflict. Your actions pull one way, your self-concept pulls the other. That tension creates friction. That friction creates resistance. And that resistance is what you call inconsistency. You tell yourself you lack discipline, focus, or motivation, but really, your system is just trying to avoid the emotional whiplash of becoming someone your nervous system doesn't recognize yet. Your current identity has kept you alive, kept you accepted, kept you feeling safe. So anything that threatens it, even something better, is treated as risk. This isn't dysfunction, it's self-preservation. And until you address that, the system won't let go. Most people don't even know what identity they're operating from. It's not like your brain shouts, "I am unworthy," before you self-sabotage. It's subtler than that. It shows up in your posture, your tone of voice, the way you speak about money, the way you handle wins, the people you let in your life, the level of chaos you tolerate in your day. If you look at your routines, your bank balance, your relationships, your workspace, it's all an echo of the self-image you haven't yet updated. And the more you behave in alignment with that image, the more real it feels. So even if it's outdated, you reinforce it daily until it becomes so automatic you forget it was ever a choice. Identity gives you structure. That's why it's so hard to change. Even painful identities serve a function. Being the struggler gives you something to prove. Being the black sheep gives you a reason to stay disconnected. Being the burnout perfectionist gives you an excuse to avoid risk. The story becomes a drug, predictable, comfortable, familiar. You might hate it, but at least you know how to live inside it. So when the new path shows up, something that asks you to become bigger, bolder, more congruent, You hesitate, not because you doubt the path, but because you don't yet trust yourself to belong at that level. This is why goal setting is mostly garbage without identity work underneath. You set a goal to hit $10,000 in a month, but your internal model still sees you as the guy who makes just enough to survive. So every win feels temporary. Every failure feels inevitable. You start creating from a place of pressure, not embodiment. From fear, not certainty. You grind to close the gap, but never stop to ask who is trying to cross it. And when the results don't come fast enough or they come too fast, you crumble. Not because of the outcome, but because of the internal contradiction it creates. The only way out is to build a new identity scaffold, one that can actually hold the level you're aiming for. That means replacing outdated roles, reframing old narratives, and shifting from reactive stories to intentional design. Identity has to be rebuilt like software, one update at a time, with clean signals, tight feedback, and constant recalibration. Because once the identity shifts, behavior becomes effortless. You stop trying and you just start being. You're not broken. You're just operating inside a self-model that expired years ago. And no, you don't need another vision board or goal tracking spreadsheet. You need to become someone else, someone who naturally does the thing, lives at the level, and holds the outcomes you're aiming for. Not as effort, but as expression. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. So if you want something new, you have to become the kind of person who has it by default. But to become someone else, you need to know where identity comes from in the first place, because the current version of you isn't just random. It's a repeating pattern. And once you see that pattern clearly, you can finally start to break it. So let's talk about the pattern that repeats itself. So if it feels like you keep hitting the same wall over and over and over again, it's because you are. It's not bad luck. It's not timing. It's not the strategy. It's the pattern. There's a specific rhythm running underneath your life, shaped by your identity, that keeps producing the same outcomes no matter what tactics you try. And until you identify it and interrupt it, it will keep looping. Not because you're failing, but because the system is doing exactly what it was built to do. You're not stuck because of what you're doing. You're stuck because of what you're repeating. You've trained your nervous system, emotions, thought patterns, and behavior to dance to a very specific tempo. And it's so familiar, you don't even hear the music anymore. Once you know what to look for, the repetition becomes obvious. Same friction, same emotional spiral, same kind of decisions that feel like choices but are actually just defaults. Every time you upgrade your goals without upgrading the pattern wins. This is where self-similarity becomes your mirror. It's a mathematical principle from fractal geometry, structures that look the same at every scale. Zoom in or zoom out, and the pattern still holds. That's your identity. It shows up in the micro and the macro. The way you brush your teeth, the way you manage your calendar, the way you handle money, relationships, risk, it's all shaped by the same internal code. You think these are separate problems: procrastination, inconsistency, burnout, insecurity, but they're not. They're symptoms of one repeating structure underneath it all. If you can trace the lines, you'll realize you've been living inside a fractal that's built to maintain your current identity. And the only way to break it is to disrupt the shape at base level. Identity patterns don't just affect behavior, they create behavior. You think you're making choices, but most of what you call decisions are just preloaded responses based on your current self-model. You keep saying you want to speak on stages, but when someone invites you to an event, you downplay your expertise and ghost the opportunity. Why? Because that offer doesn't fit the loop. It's not part of the story you've lived so far. Your brain favors familiarity over freedom. It would rather repeat a known loop than risk stepping outside the edges of your current identity, even if what's outside is better. Every time you run the pattern, it gets stronger. Habits aren't just behavior, they're physical. They leave literal grooves in your neurology. And the more times you fire a pattern, the more automatic it becomes. Your body memorizes the emotions attached to certain outcomes. So if failure feels familiar, your system starts interpreting it as safe. You're not scared of failing, you're addicted to the emotional rhythm of the version of you who fails and gets back up again. That's why your wins feel uncomfortable. They don't match your normal loop. They don't fit inside the pattern. So your nervous system throws tension into the system, hoping to bring you back to emotional baseline. And you don't just act from the pattern, you attract from it too. Your beliefs shape your perception. If you believe you're the kind of person who can't be trusted with money, you'll subconsciously seek out situations that validate that belief. If you see yourself as the one who's always fixing things, you'll keep creating problems to solve. You'll keep inviting chaos just to feel useful. Even the people around you will start reflecting back your identity loop. You'll attract relationships, opportunities, and conversations that reinforce your default self-image, not challenge it. The only way to stop the pattern is to do something the current version of you would never do. This doesn't mean doing something big. It means doing something unfamiliar, something small but out of character, something that interrupts the rhythm. Raise your price without over-explaining. Say no without guilt. Publish the thing without polishing it 17 times. Ask for help without earning it. It will feel wrong. It will feel unnatural, like you're faking it. But that's not a sign to stop. That's the sign the loop has finally been disrupted. One disruption isn't enough. The loop is strong. It wants to survive. You have to install new patterns and reinforce them until they start to feel normal. This is how your identity shifts, through repeated signals, not intellectual understanding. Identity doesn't change when you believe in a new version of yourself. It changes when you behave like them, often enough that your nervous system catches up. The first few reps feel awkward, the next few feel neutral, and eventually it feels weird not to operate like the upgraded version of you. Patterns lose power the moment you recognize they aren't you. You're not the loop, you're the one running it. And the moment you see the code, you can start rewriting it. You don't need to fix every behavior, you just need to fix the structure that produces them. Break the pattern and the behaviors collapse on their own. This is where real leverage begins, not in doing more, but in becoming more deliberate about who you are when you act. And once you understand the pattern, the next step is obvious. You can't change what you are without upgrading how you think. And that means working with the system your brain actually uses to evolve, which is where we're going next. So let's talk about the brain that won't let you change. So you're not crazy for finding change difficult. You're not broken, you're just wired for sameness. Your brain doesn't care about your goals, it cares about keeping you alive, and the best way to do that is by predicting what happens next. That means even good change can feel like danger if it's unfamiliar. It's not about what's rational, it's about what's known. The more predictable your life feels, the safer your brain assumes it is. That's why even self-destructive habits can feel comforting. Staying in a job you hate still gives your brain a reward, certainty. Even if you're miserable, at least you know what's coming. Each time you repeat a behavior, your system goes, see, still alive, let's keep doing that. This is what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. It's when your actions and identity don't match. Your mind flips out, not because something's wrong, but because something's inconsistent. If you've spent 10 years seeing yourself as undisciplined, and then suddenly you wake up at 5 a.m. to run hill sprints, your brain raises a red flag. It doesn't ask, is this better? It asks, does this match our story? And if it doesn't match, it fights back. That's why your body resists positive change, not because it hates growth, but because growth becomes the loop. You'll feel friction, fatigue, overwhelm, and even dread, not as a sign to stop, but as a sign that you're stepping outside your identity's comfort zone. Most people interpret that signal as failure and snap back to their old ways right when the rewiring was beginning. And you won't think your way out of this. That's the trap. Your brain doesn't change through logic, it changes through proof. It updates its internal map when the external data contradicts the old one enough times. And that's where the idea of Bayesian updating comes in. So Bayesian updating comes from a principle in probability theory. At its core, it's a mathematical way of updating beliefs in response to new evidence. You start with a prior belief, your current assumption about how the world works. Then, as new data or experiences come in, you don't throw out your old belief completely, you just adjust it. You revise your mental model in real time, moment by moment, by asking, given what I just experienced, what do I believe now? This is how intelligent systems evolve. And it's exactly how identity transformation works as well. Every time you act like the future version of yourself, you give your brain new evidence, new probabilities, new data points. And slowly, your system starts seeing that identity as not just possible, but normal. It's a fancy term, but the concept is simple. You start with a belief and then you adjust it every time new evidence shows up. Most people don't give themselves enough reps of the new behavior, so their brain has no reason to believe that change is actually real. When the evidence piles up day by day, choice by choice, the old belief starts to lose credibility, and the brain says, okay, maybe this is who we are now. What matters most isn't only what you tell yourself, but what you show yourself as well. Small actions matter more than grand gestures. Every time you act in alignment with a new identity, you feed your brain more data. And at a certain threshold, it flips. It stops seeing it as a one-time thing and starts accepting it as just how we operate now. You'll know this process is working when it gets weirdly uncomfortable. You'll feel fake, even guilty, like you're doing something wrong even though you're doing exactly what you said you wanted to. That discomfort is the death rattle of the old identity. So expect it. It means you're no longer behaving like the person you've always been. And this is where people bail. They feel the tension and assume they're being inauthentic, but they're not. They're just unfamiliar with this version of themselves. It's like meeting a new person. The only way to make it feel natural is to keep going, to keep talking to them, to keep getting to know them. Let it burn, let the old story protest, and keep showing up anyway. So you're not building confidence, you're building consistency here. And that's a different game. Identity is built like muscle, through resistance, repetition, and rest. You can't believe in yourself into a new identity. You have to act like the new version long enough that belief becomes inevitable. Your nervous system doesn't respond to self-talk, it responds to behavior. It listens to what you do, not what you say. Every aligned choice is a vote for the future you, not just metaphorically, but neurologically. You don't need to overhaul your whole life. You just need to win enough small bets that the scales tip. Your job isn't to be perfect, it's to become undeniable, to flood the system with so much new evidence that the old self-image drowns. Eventually, the new identity stops feeling aspirational and starts feeling familiar. You no longer have to force it, you just live it. This is where authenticity comes back online. You're not trying to be this person anymore, you are them. Your brain has caught up, your body has stabilized, and the internal contradictions dissolve. And now, you're finally in a position to upgrade everything, because the goal was never just behavior change, it was identity change. And once that clicks, everything else gets way easier, because now you're not fighting yourself anymore, you're finally moving in sync. And the next step, that's where it all converges. So let's talk about the system that makes you someone else. So identity doesn't evolve in isolation. You don't just decide who you want to be and magically snap into it. You need a system, a structure that catches the new behaviors before they collapse under the weight of old patterns. You need daily rhythms, physical anchors, environmental cues, and social context that pull you forward when your willpower runs dry, which it will inevitably. You can't white knuckle your way into a new self, but you can rig the game. If you keep trying to build a new identity without changing your inputs, you'll always default back to the same baseline. You say you're a writer now, but your desk is cluttered, your phone's buzzing, and you never block out time to write. Your system is still built for distraction, not creation. You end up reinforcing your old identity every time the structure fails to support the new one. And that failure gets internalized, not as my system didn't work, but as I must not be that kind of person. The system removes friction. It makes the new you easier to live inside. So stack behaviors that support your identity onto routines that already exist. You already make coffee in the morning. Great, you can add 60 seconds of breath work or journaling right after. That one shift can move your nervous system out of survival mode and into execution mode. When that becomes normal, you don't have to think about it. And when you don't have to think about it, your energy can go to the work that actually matters. Your environment should also be coded with signals that remind you who you are becoming. What's in your field of vision the moment you wake up? What notifications hit your phone? What do you see on your desk, your mirror, your calendar? Every input is either reinforcing your old self or helping anchor the new one. There is no neutral signal. Remove visual noise, add intentional cues, and prime your spaces to whisper the right message at the right time, every time. The system shouldn't just support the new identity, it should actively block the old one. If you're becoming someone who creates instead of consumes, use blockers that make distraction physically annoying. Keep your phone in another room, cancel Netflix, and delete the dopamine loops. A good system doesn't just optimize for focus, it protects it, not with hope, with literal friction, because the old you will absolutely try to sneak back in when your energy dips. Without measurement, you drift. The system has to track your trajectory. Did you execute on the identity today? Yes or no? That's it, just data. Review your actions like an engineer reviews a model, not emotionally, mechanically. What worked, what broke, what needs to be patched before next week. Don't underestimate the power of ritual. Ritual builds rhythm, and rhythm builds identity. Choose one repeatable I am becoming action you do every single day, not for the results, but for proof, for internal congruence. Training in silence, journaling as the sun rises, speaking the new identity out loud before you check your phone. These aren't just cute little habits, they are spells. They code your system with meaning. Now, solo transformation is slow. Social transformation is exponential. When other people witness your evolution and reflect it back to you, it cements it faster. The right people don't just encourage you, they expect the new you to show up. And that expectation creates gravity. Not social pressure in the toxic sense, pressure in the chemical sense, a container that accelerates change. The system is alive. It adapts with you. Every time you level up, your structure has to evolve. The system that got you from level 2 to level 5 will choke you at level 7. You have to be ruthless about reconfiguring it. Look at it like a machine. Strip the pieces that no longer serve. Add new ones that do. Keep the whole thing light, clean, and lethal. The point of the system is not to make life robotic. It's to eliminate unnecessary negotiation. Once your system carries the load, the brain doesn't have to argue with itself about every action. That space, that clarity is where you finally feel like you've become. When the system works, your life starts generating momentum automatically. And instead of being the person who's always trying to change, you're now the person who doesn't have to try anymore. And this is where it all starts to link. Because identity isn't just personal, it's relational. And if you want to fully become the person you're building, the next move has to involve who you're becoming it with. So let's talk about the environment that finishes the job. So you've done the thinking, you've done the questioning, you've started the rewiring, but now comes the part no one talks about. Because here's the truth. Most identity shifts die in the dark. Not because the idea wasn't strong enough, not because the system didn't make sense, not even because the person didn't want it bad enough. They die because the environment didn't change. And if the environment doesn't shift, identity can stabilize. You can fight upstream for a while, but eventually you get tired and you revert. The old world keeps pulling on you. You make progress during the day, but by night you're surrounded by people who still think like the old you, who treat ambition like arrogance, who normalize failure as safety, who punish clarity because they're scared of it. That weight adds up, and if you're not careful, you start negotiating with it again. You start questioning yourself again. You start turning down your volume, your vision, your velocity, just to keep the peace. It's not just about people, it's about mirrors. Your current environment is a hall of distorted mirrors that reflect back the weakest, smallest, safest version of you. Even when you evolve, you can't fully believe it if everyone around you still treats you like who you used to be. You make a bold move, they question it. You take a risk, they remind you of the downside. You win, and they say you've changed. And they don't mean it as a compliment. But what happens when the mirrors change? When every person around you is playing the same game you are. When winning is expected. When honesty is mandatory. When becoming is normal. That's when identity stops being an uphill battle and starts becoming downhill momentum. You become who you're around. If you're around clarity, you get clear. If you're around creators, you create. If you're around warriors, you sharpen. Most people don't need another book or another insight or another tool. They just need to stop being the smartest person in the room. The fastest way to reprogram your identity is to live in a space where the new you is the baseline. Not the kind that crushes, the kind that calls you up. Not the kind that coddles, the kind that lets you finally go all in. Because for once, you're not the only one who sees what you see. So let's zoom out for a second. If you've been here the last few days, then you've walked through a complete arc without even realizing it. The first training on how your brain keeps you broke exposed the system, the invisible loops, the feedback failures, the financial control panels you never realized were broken. The second one showed you the state, the inner glitch, the nervous system loops, the lagging indicators you mistook for personality. And this one revealed the self, the outdated identity you've been dragging like dead weight, the misaligned persona that keeps repelling everything you say you want. What you've been building over these 3 trainings is not knowledge, it's readiness. Readiness to stop fighting yourself in circles. Readiness to lock in the new version of you with an environment that reflects it, reinforces it, and respects it. And this is why I want to make you an invitation. This is what the Omniscient platform was built for. Not just more information for the sake of it, but a complete transformation system. Health, wealth, love, and self. These are the 4 tracks of human ascension, and we don't skip any of them. This is where you sharpen all 4 in unison, so no part of you gets left behind. Courses, content, all the documents from every training from this channel, weekly coaching calls, a community, chat features, a vault of frameworks, protocols, and training blueprints across health, wealth, love, and self, a living curriculum, and people who won't let you coast, lie, or shrink because they're too busy becoming unrecognizable themselves, all for free. And yet, those are just the tools. The real power is the identity container. All of that lives inside. This isn't just about what you learn, it's about who you become while you're learning it. If these videos and trainings hit you in the gut, that wasn't random. Something in you knows you're done playing at 40%. That old version of you had its run, and this next one needs a different environment to finish the job. So the doors are open. Go to the first link in the description and join the Omniscient platform for free. If this is your tribe, you'll know. And if you don't, that's feedback too. You don't need more goals, hacks, or random tactics. You need a place where action is the norm. You don't need more noise. You need signal. You need a structure that demands the new you. That's what this is. I'll see you on the inside. So with that being said, let's discuss the review. So went over the overview. We talked about the identity trap, the pattern that repeats itself, the brain that won't let you change, the system that makes you someone else, the environment that finishes the job. Finally, we're at the review and your action items for the day or the next few days. First, stop obsessing over goals and start rewriting the internal system that either allows or rejects them. Identity before strategy. Apply Bayesian updating daily and let every aligned action, no matter how small, be evidence that the old version is being replaced. And finally, step into the environment designed to make this real. Join the Omniscient community from the first link in the description, and I'll see you there. With that being said, thank you for being here, and I'm going to see you in the next one.